Some men get pushed to their limit and pour themselves a stiff drink and go to bed. I got pushed to mine and called an attorney from an airport bathroom at midnight. But we'll get to that. Tuesday, March 4th, Knoxville, Tennessee. 11:47 p.m. I was asleep in my recliner with the TV watching me because that's what happens when you're 76 and you've earned the right to fall asleep anywhere you want. The volume was low. Some home renovation show. A couple arguing about countertops like it was a national emergency. My kind of Tuesday. My phone buzzed on the side table. I squinted at the screen. Mrs. Lucy. Now listen. Mrs. Lucy Coleman doesn't call past 8 p.m. ever. She's 81. She goes to bed with the chickens. And the last time she called me after dark was when a raccoon got into her garbage and she wanted moral support. So when her name lit up my screen at 11:47 on a Tuesday night in March, every hair on the back of my neck stood straight up. I answered on the second ring. Lucy? Noah? Her voice was low. Careful. The way people talk in hospital hallways. I'm sorry to call so late. I wouldn't if it wasn't. I just didn't know what else to do. I sat up straight. Sleep gone. Completely gone. What happened? She exhaled slowly. I've been hearing Ella cry through the wall for 2 nights running. I knocked this afternoon. She opened the door by herself, Noah. In her pajamas. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and she had a bowl of dry cereal on the couch and the TV on. And she was completely alone. The room got very still. I asked her where her mama was. Lucy continued. She said her mom and dad went on a trip. Said they left 2 days ago. Sunday morning? I asked her if any adult had checked on her. And she said a lady from down the street brought her a sandwich yesterday, but she didn't know her name. My hand tightened around the phone. She asked me if you knew, Noah. That's the first thing she asked. Does my grandpa know? I was already standing. I'm on my way. I called Ella before I even had my shoes on. The phone rang once. Just once. Like she'd been sitting next to it in the dark waiting for someone. Anyone. To call. Grandpa? Lord. That voice. 8 years old and already sounding like someone who had learned not to expect too much. Hey baby. You okay? I think so. I think so. 8 years old and already hedging her emotions to protect other people's comfort. My chest cracked clean down the middle. Ella, listen to me. Is the door locked? Yes, sir. Good girl. Have you eaten today? I had cereal this morning. And Mrs. Lucy brought me a sandwich yesterday. But I saved some for today because I didn't know when she stopped. Like she'd said too much. She rationed a sandwich for 2 days because she didn't know when someone was coming back. I grabbed my keys. Pack a bag, sweetheart. Grandpa's coming right now. You're not spending another night alone. Silence. Then so quiet I almost missed it. Grandpa, did I do something wrong? Because Michael got to go and I asked Mommy if I could come and she said the cruise cost too much and I... Her voice cracked. My birthday was last month. They got me a backpack. I thought maybe I'd been bad, but I can't remember what I did. I stopped moving. I stood in my hallway in Knoxville, Tennessee at midnight with my shoes half on. And I made a decision right then. Not an emotional decision. Not a reactive one. A permanent one. Ella. You did nothing wrong. You hear me? Not one single thing. Now pack your rabbit and your favorite shirt and unlock the front door. Grandpa will be there in 4 minutes. Mrs. Lucy was sitting on the porch steps when my headlights swung into Birchwood Lane. Ella was next to her wrapped in a blanket. Her little rolling suitcase at her feet. Stuffed rabbit wedged under her arm. When my headlights hit her, she stood up. Then she ran. She didn't say a word when she reached me. She just grabbed on and held. I picked her up. All 52 pounds of her. And held her in the driveway of my son's house. And looked over her shoulder at Mrs. Lucy, who was pressing her fingers to her lips trying to hold herself together. I called his cell, Lucy said quietly. Yesterday morning? No answer. Left a voicemail. Nothing. Of course, nothing. I carried Ella to my car. Buckled her in myself. Tucked the blanket around her legs. Before I closed the door, Lucy touched my arm. Noah. I know an attorney. She's good. Real good. Family law. Her name is Catherine Watson. She's got an office downtown on Gay Street. 22 years and she has never lost a custody case. Not one. I looked at her. Send me her number. Right now, Lucy. She already had her phone out. Ella was asleep before we hit the end of the street. I drove back toward Maple Ridge in silence. The radio off. Just the sound of the highway and the heat running and Ella's slow breathing in the back seat. At the intersection of Kingston Pike and North Shore, I hit a red light. Don't do it, Noah. I did it. I opened Harry's Instagram. And there it was. Posted at 8:34 p.m. that same evening. Harry. Renee. Michael. Standing on the deck of a cruise ship somewhere off the coast of Florida. Golden hour light pouring over everything like God himself had agreed to be their photographer. Renee in a white sundress. Michael holding a virgin cocktail with a little umbrella in it. Harry. My son. My blood. The boy I coached in Little League and drove to college and cried at his wedding. Harry had his arm around his wife. And he was grinning like a man without a single thing on his conscience. Caption. Family time. So grateful for these two. These two. Not three. Two. The light turned green. I didn't move. The car behind me honked. I still didn't move. I just sat there at that intersection staring at those words. These two. The car behind me honked again. Longer this time. Real annoyed. Yeah. Me too, buddy. Me too. I got Ella home. Got her settled into the guest room with her rabbit and an extra blanket and a glass of water on the nightstand. I sat on the edge of the bed until her breathing went slow and even. Then I went to the kitchen table. I opened my laptop. I made a pot of coffee I didn't need. And I started writing everything down. Every date. Every detail. Every word Ella said verbatim. Lucy's account. The Instagram post. The timestamps. The voicemail Harry never returned. This wasn't anger. This was evidence. At 2:11 a.m. my phone buzzed. Lucy had sent the contact card. Catherine Watson. Watson and Associates, Family Law. Gay Street, downtown Knoxville. 22 years experience. I saved it immediately. Then I opened a new browser tab and started looking at flights to Miami. Because here's the thing about being a grandfather in Knoxville, Tennessee, who just picked up his 8-year-old daughter from an empty house on Birchwood Lane where she'd been rationing a sandwich and eating dry cereal alone for 2 days. You don't get mad. You get organized. If you have been listening for a while, do us one quick favor. Subscribe. A lot of people watch without ever doing it. But it costs you nothing and it means everything to us. Hit the like button while you're at it. And drop your thoughts in the comments after listening. You are going to love it here. By 3 a.m. I had 2 round-trip tickets to Miami booked. A suite at the Key Biscayne Island Resort confirmed. And a 9 a.m. appointment request sent to Catherine Watson's office email that read simply, My name is Noah Fletcher. My granddaughter was left home alone for 2 days while her parents took a cruise with their biological son. I need to know every legal option available to me. I'll be in your office the moment I'm back in Knoxville. Noah. Then I called Harry. 3:17 a.m. I knew he wouldn't answer. I didn't want him to answer. I wanted him to wake up the next morning, roll over in his cruise ship cabin, reach for his phone and find a voicemail from his father waiting for him like a loaded envelope. The tone beeped. Hey, son. My voice was calm. Warm even. Almost cheerful. Just wanted to let you know I've got Ella. We're going on a little trip ourselves. Hope the cruise is everything you wanted it to be. I paused just long enough. We'll talk when you get back. I hung up. Walked down the hall. Checked on Ella one more time. She was curled up with her rabbit. Her face finally relaxed. No tension in her little forehead. No fear around her eyes. She looked like what she was. A child. Just a child. I went back to the kitchen and sat in the quiet of my house in Maple Ridge, Knoxville, Tennessee, and drank my unnecessary coffee and thought about what the next 2 weeks were going to look like for my son Harry Fletcher. I had evidence. I had an attorney. I had 2 plane tickets to Miami. And Harry had absolutely no idea. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. They say the best revenge is living well. I say the best revenge is living well while your attorney is quietly building a case that'll make your enemy's knees buckle. But we'll get to that. Wednesday, March 5th, Knoxville, Tennessee. 6:14 a.m. I was on my second cup of coffee when Ella padded into the kitchen in her socked feet. Hair everywhere. Rabbit tucked under her arm. Looking like a small confused owl. She stopped at the kitchen doorway and looked at me. Grandpa, why are you already dressed? Because we've got a plane to catch, Ladybug. She blinked. A plane? Miami, Florida. You and me. We leave in 3 hours. The owl blinked again. Then slowly, carefully, like she was afraid to want it too much, the corners of her mouth started moving. Are you serious? Do I look like a man who jokes about Florida? She looked at me for 1 full second. Then she screamed and ran back down the hallway to get ready, and I sat at my kitchen table in Maple Ridge, Knoxville, Tennessee, and smiled into my coffee cup for the first time in 12 hours. That one sound right there, that's what this whole thing was for. Thursday, March 6th, Key Biscayne Island Resort, Miami, Florida, 10:22 a.m. I want you to understand something about this resort. I am a 76-year-old man from Knoxville who drives a Ford F-150 and considers Cracker Barrel a fine dining establishment. I do not do luxury. I do not do bellhops or turn-down service or menus that don't have prices on them, but I booked the Ocean Suite anyway. And when that bellhop opened the door to our room, and the floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the entire Atlantic Ocean sparkling in the morning light like God had just Windexed it, I decided that turn-down service wasn't so bad after all. Ella walked in behind me. She stopped, completely still, both hands at her sides, rabbit from her left fist. She stood there for 10 full seconds just staring. Grandpa. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Are we rich? I laughed so hard I had to set my bag down. We are for the next 5 days, baby. Can I touch the window? You can lick the window if you want. We're paying enough for it. She giggled, this bright surprise giggle that bounced off the marble floors, and ran straight for the glass with both hands outstretched. Right there. That giggle, that's the one that almost broke me. Because it hit me all at once. I hadn't heard that sound in months, maybe longer, and I hadn't even noticed it was gone until it came back. The next 4 days were something I would carry with me until they put me in the ground. Day 1, the resort water park. Ella went down the main slide 11 times. 11, I counted. By the 7th time the teenage lifeguard at the top was giving her a fist bump. By the 11th time she had a whole cheering section of strangers at the bottom hollering for her like she was competing for something. She kind of was. Day 2, horseback riding on the beach at sunrise. The guide, a quiet man named Ray, put Ella on a gentle brown mare named Biscuit and led them along the shoreline while the sky turned pink and gold above the water. Ella sat up straight on that horse like she'd been born to it. She kept looking down at the sand, then out at the ocean, then back at me walking alongside with my phone out. Grandpa, take a picture. I took about 40. I posted one on Facebook. Ella on Biscuit, ocean behind her, the biggest smile I'd seen on that face in God knows how long. Caption: My granddaughter on her first horse. She has never looked more at home. I knew Harry would see it. I posted it anyway. Call it information. Call it a preview of coming attractions. Call it a grandfather who was done being quiet. Day 3, the cooking class with Antonio. Now, Antonio Caruso was a 58-year-old chef from Naples, Italy, who had somehow ended up running a resort kitchen in Miami, Florida, and absolutely nobody was complaining. The man had forearms like a longshoreman and an accent so thick he needed subtitles, and he called everyone guest staff seagulls, my friend. Ella walked into that kitchen, and Antonio looked at her and spread his arms wide like she was a long-lost relative arriving from across the ocean. Ah, my smallest student. Come. Could today we make pasta from scratch, yes? You ready to work? Ella looked at me. I nodded. She looked back at Antonio and squared her little shoulders like she was about to walk into a boardroom. I'm ready. What followed was the most flour I have ever seen outside of a professional bakery. It was everywhere. On Ella, on Antonio, somehow on me, and I was standing in the doorway watching. Antonio talked the entire time about Naples, about his mother's kitchen, about how pasta is just flour and eggs and love, my friend. That's all. That's everything. Ella listened to every single word with total concentration, tongue slightly out, hands working the dough like she'd done it before in another life. At the end, Antonio tasted her pasta, closed his eyes with the drama of a man accepting an Oscar, and said, "She's a natural. A genuine natural. You." He pointed directly at me. "You bring her back next year, yes? I make her a chef." Ella beamed so hard I thought her face might actually crack open. I took a photo of that too. Flour on her nose, grinning like she just conquered something. Because she had. But here's the part nobody saw. Every night, every single night, after Ella fell asleep, I took my phone out to the balcony, closed the sliding door quietly behind me, settled into the chair overlooking the ocean, and called Catherine Watson. 9 p.m. sharp every time. Catherine Watson did not do small talk. In 22 years of family law, she had apparently used up her entire small talk allocation somewhere around 2008, and had absolutely none remaining. Which suited me perfectly. Night 1. Tell me everything. From the beginning. Don't editorialize. Just facts and dates. I talked for 40 minutes straight. She interrupted exactly twice, both times to nail down specific timestamps. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. The kind of quiet that means someone is thinking rather than stalling. Okay. Here's where we stand, she said. What they did has a legal definition, Noah. Leaving an 8-year-old child without adequate adult supervision for more than 24 hours in Tennessee meets the threshold for supervisory neglect under state child welfare statutes. I gripped the balcony railing. You're certain? I filed cases on considerably less. Here's what we have. Your neighbor's eyewitness account. That's gold, Noah. Direct, first-hand, documentable. We have the child's own statements. I'll need those properly recorded. We have the Instagram post timestamp during the neglect period. And we have your voicemail establishing you as the responsible party who stepped in when her parents didn't. She paused. I also need school records. Behavioral changes, attendance, teacher notes, anything flagged in the past 2 years. I'll have them by Friday. Good. When you're back in Knoxville, I'll have the initial framework ready. We're pursuing 3 things simultaneously. Grandparent visitation rights that are legally enforceable, and court-ordered a formal report to Child Protective Services, and a motion for psychological evaluation of the home environment as it pertains to Ella's welfare. I exhaled slowly into the Miami night air. Will Ella have to testify? Catherine's voice didn't shift even slightly. Not if I do my job correctly. And I always do my job correctly. I believed her completely. Night 2, Catherine walked me through the financial dimensions. The trust restructuring, the college fund, the will revisions. She spoke about irrevocable trust the way some people talk about the weather. Matter of fact, inevitable, already decided. Once it's filed, it cannot be undone, she said. Not by Harry. Not by Renee. Not by any attorney they hire. Are you certain? I've never been more certain of anything in my life, Catherine. Then I'll have the documents drafted before you land. Night 3, That's when everything shifted in a way I wasn't prepared for. I was on the balcony giving Catherine the school records I'd had Ella's teacher email me. 2 years of notes, a documented behavioral decline, a flag from the school counselor 6 months ago that Harry and Renee had apparently received, acknowledged, and then ignored entirely. When I heard the sliding door behind me, Ella, standing in the doorway in her pajamas, rabbit dangling, squinting at me with sleepy, suspicious eyes. "Grandpa, who are you talking to?" I covered the phone. "Just a work call, Ladybug. Go back to bed. It's night time. Important work call." She considered this with the full gravity of a federal judge reviewing a complex case. "Then, can I have water? There's a bottle on the nightstand. Can I have the fancy water from the little fridge? I am on the phone with an attorney building a legal case against your parents, and you are out here negotiating minibar water at 9 p.m. "Yes. One bottle, then bed." She disappeared without further argument. I went back to Catherine. "Sorry about that. 8-year-old interruption." "I heard," Catherine said, and I will go to my grave swearing I detected the faintest trace of warmth somewhere beneath that precise professional voice. "She sounds like she's doing considerably better." "She really is, Catherine." "Good. Hold on to that. The contrast between her documented behavioral decline at home and her current emotional state in your care, that distinction is going to matter significantly in front of a judge." I wrote that down word for word, but it was night 4 that I genuinely was not prepared for. We were at the resort's main restaurant. White tablecloths, candles, the kind of place where the bread basket arrives before you've even fully sat down. Ella was eating shrimp for the first time, making a different face with every single one, conducting a full running commentary on each shrimp individually, ultimately and ceremoniously declaring that she loved them. I was watching her and thinking, this is exactly what she looks like when nobody is making her feel small. When she suddenly put her fork down, went completely quiet, looked at the tablecloth for a moment, then looked up at me with those enormous brown eyes. "Grandpa, am I adopted because something is wrong with me?" The restaurant kept moving all around us. Glasses clinking somewhere behind me. A couple laughing at the bar. A waiter rattling off specials at the next table. But right there, at that table, everything stopped. I set my fork down slowly. I reached across that white tablecloth, and I took both her small hands in mine and I told her the truth, all of it, every piece of it, age-appropriate, careful, completely honest. I told her what adoption means and what it absolutely does not mean. I told her that being chosen is not consolation prize. It is the whole race. I told her that her birth mother was young and scared and that what she did was an act of love, not abandonment. I told her that I would have driven through the night, flown across the country, and turned over every legal stone in the state of Tennessee before I let anyone make her feel like a leftover. Her eyes got shiny. She nodded slowly, processing every word with that serious, careful face she gets. Then she looked at my bread basket. "Can I have some of your bread?" "You can have all of it." "And dessert?" "Order 2. She smiled, small at first, then bigger, then the real one, the one that starts slow and then reaches all the way up to her eyes and just stays there. I excused myself to the restroom after dessert, stood at the sink, ran cold water over my wrists, and stared at myself in the mirror for a long moment. Because I had held it together at that table for her. I had been steady and warm and certain because that was what she needed. But I am only human, and somewhere out there on the Atlantic Ocean, on a cruise ship full of champagne sunsets and carefully curated Instagram captions, my son Harry Fletcher was sleeping just fine. That thought, that specific thought, that was the one that made me dry my hands, straighten my collar, walk back out to that restaurant, and sit down across from my granddaughter and make a decision that had been building since the moment I picked up Mrs. Lucy's phone call. No more waiting. No more patience. No more giving Harry the benefit of any doubt. We were going home to Knoxville and Catherine Watson had work to do. If you've made it this far and want stories like this to keep coming, it really helps if you hit that like button and subscribe. Thank you for real. Some people need a courtroom to find justice. Some people need a conversation. Harry Fletcher needed both, and I made sure he got them. Sunday, March 16th, Knoxville, Tennessee. 4:47 p.m. Ella fell asleep on the plane home with her head on my shoulder, and her stuffed rabbit in her lap and a half-eaten bag of pretzels in her hand, like she just stopped mid-snack and checked out completely. The flight attendant smiled at us when she came by to collect trash. I held up one hand. "Don't wake her, please." She nodded and moved on quietly. I sat there at 30,000 feet with my granddaughter asleep on my shoulder, and thought about what was waiting for us back at Knoxville. Not with dread, with something closer to quiet certainty, the kind a man feels when he knows exactly what he's walking into, and is already prepared for every single version of it. Harry and Renee had landed 2 days earlier. I knew because Harry had finally responded to my 3 a.m. voicemail. Not a phone call, not even a real sentence. 6 words via text message, no punctuation, no explanation. "We need to talk. Coming home Sunday." I read it twice. Then I forwarded it to Catherine Watson with one line attached. "Monday morning, my house. Be there at 9 o'clock. Catherine replied in under 4 minutes. "Already cleared my calendar. I'll bring everything." Monday, March 17th, Maple Ridge, Knoxville, Tennessee. 8:59 a.m. Catherine Watson arrived at my front door at 8:59 a.m. 1 minute early, which I would later learn was the latest she ever arrived anywhere. Charcoal blazer, low heels, a leather briefcase that had clearly seen serious rooms before mine. She walked in, set her files on my dining room table, accepted a cup of coffee without ceremony, and sat down like she had been sitting at that table her entire career. I liked her more every single time I saw her. "They don't know I'm here?" she asked without looking up from her folder. "They think it's a family conversation." The faintest smile crossed her face, just barely. "It is, just a very well-documented one." At 9:03 a.m. I heard Harry's car pull into the driveway. "Here we go." The front door opened. Harry came in first, my son, 38 years old, tan from 10 days on a cruise ship, wearing a jacket like he'd dressed deliberately for this moment. He looked tired underneath the tan, the deep kind, the kind that sleep doesn't fix because it isn't coming from exhaustion. It's coming from somewhere inside that rest can't reach. Renee came in right behind him, chin up, shoulders squared, jaw set. The woman had clearly spent the drive over constructing her argument, and she arrived fully armored and ready to deploy it. Harry opened his mouth to speak. Then he saw Catherine. He stopped walking mid-step like someone had cut his power. "Dad?" "Who?" "Harry, Renee, this is Catherine Watson," I said pleasantly. "Family law attorney, 22 years experience, office on Gay Street downtown. Please sit down. There's coffee." Renee's eyes moved from Catherine to me to the open folder on the table and back to Catherine. Something shifted behind her eyes, not fear yet, recalculation. "Noah." Her voice was controlled. "We came here for a family conversation, not a... This isn't." "Please sit down, Mrs. Fletcher," Catherine said. Just that, just 4 words in that perfectly even voice. Renee sat down. Not because she wanted to, because something in Catherine's tone made the alternative feel significantly worse. I had experienced that exact same tone on the phone from Miami, and I completely understood. Harry sat beside her, his hands flat on the table. He still hadn't looked directly at me. He knows. He has known since the moment he listened to my voicemail on that cruise ship. He has been carrying it across 2 states and 10 days of ocean air, and it is sitting right there on his face for anyone paying attention. Catherine opened her folder without theater or ceremony. No dramatic pause, no build-up. She simply slid a single typed sheet of paper across the table like she was passing the salt. A timeline, clean, precise, merciless. Sunday, March 2nd, Harry and Renee Fletcher depart Knoxville, Tennessee with minor child Michael Fletcher for Port of Miami. Minor child Ella Fletcher, age 8, remains at family residence on Birchwood Lane without adult supervision. March 2nd through March 4th, Ella Fletcher observed alone at residence by neighbor Lucy Coleman. Child reported surviving on dry cereal and a single sandwich over the 2-day period. No confirmed adult supervision during this time. Tuesday, March 4th, 11:47 p.m. Lucy Coleman contacts Noah Fletcher. Tuesday, March 4th, 11:59 p.m. Noah Fletcher retrieves Ella Fletcher from residence. Harry read it. His face didn't move a single muscle. Renee read it. Her face moved considerably. This is completely, you can't just, we made arrangements. Mrs. Fletcher. Catherine's voice remained perfectly pleasant, perfectly immovable. I'm going to save everyone some time. What is documented on that page has a specific legal definition under Tennessee state statute. Leaving a minor child under the age of 10 without adequate adult supervision meets the threshold for supervisory neglect. We are not here this morning to debate whether it occurred. It occurred. Mrs. Lucy Coleman has provided a signed written statement. We have time-stamped social media documentation. We have the child's own account recorded and notarized. She slid a second sheet across the table. We are here to discuss what happens next. Renee opened her mouth again. Harry put his hand firmly on her arm. She stopped. I noted that, filed it, first decisive thing my son had done in this entire situation. 2 weeks late, but noted nonetheless. Catherine laid it out the way a surgeon works, clean, precise, no wasted motion. 3 simultaneous legal actions already drafted and ready to file. Grandparent visitation rights, legally enforceable, court-ordered, non-negotiable in scope. A formal report to Child Protective Services, documented, detailed, supported by 2 years of school behavioral records, including a counselor flag from 6 months prior that Harry and Renee had received, acknowledged in writing, and ignored completely. A motion for full psychological evaluation of the home environment as it directly related to Ella's emotional welfare, supported by documented behavioral decline, teacher testimony, and the contrast between Ella's current emotional state and her state prior to Noah's intervention. With every item Catherine placed on the table, Renee's color changed. She went from controlled defensive pink to a very specific shade of pale that I recognized as the color of someone doing rapid internal mathematics and not finding a single answer that worked in their favor. Harry had not moved, had not spoken, was staring at the timeline the way a man stares at a car accident he caused. Catherine folded her hands on the table. The CPS report has been fully drafted. It has not yet been filed. That remains a choice for the next 72 hours. Silence. Real silence, the kind with actual physical weight. And then Harry Fletcher, my son, looked up from that piece of paper and looked at me directly for the first time since he'd walked through my front door. His eyes were red. Dad? Just that one word, just my name, carrying the full weight of everything he hadn't said for 2 weeks. A confession and an apology and a question all compressed into a single syllable. I waited. I gave him nothing. I let him carry it the rest of the way himself. I knew it was wrong. His voice came out rough and uneven. I knew the whole entire time. Renee said it was just this one trip that we'd make it up to Ella when we got home. And I told myself that was true because it was easier then. He stopped. His jaw worked. I packed my bag and I walked past her bedroom and she was sitting on her bed looking at me and I kept walking, Dad. I kept walking and I closed the front door and I got in the car. His voice broke completely on the last word. Renee turned to look at him sharply. He didn't look back at her. He kept his eyes on me, red and exhausted, and completely without defense. The room was so quiet I could hear the kitchen clock. I looked at my son for a long moment. The boy who used to fall asleep on my shoulder on long Sunday drives. The boy I taught to throw a baseball in the backyard on Maple Ridge. The boy I dropped off at college and cried the entire drive home. The man sitting across from me now who had packed a suitcase, walked past his daughter's bedroom door and kept going. I wanted to be furious. I was furious, but underneath the fury, deeper than it, older than it, was something else entirely. Grief. Pure, clean grief. For the father I believed I had raised and the man sitting in front of me who had somewhere along the way become someone I didn't fully recognize. I let myself feel it for exactly 3 seconds. Then I opened my folder. I know you knew, Harry, I said quietly. That's the part that kept me up at night. He flinched like the words were physical. Good. I slid my folder across the table. Harry picked it up. Read the first page carefully. Set it down with both hands like it was made of something fragile. Renee grabbed it. Read it faster. Set it down harder. My updated will, reviewed, revised, and formally notarized by Catherine's firm the week prior while Ella was eating shrimp and negotiating mini-bar water in Miami. A significant portion of my estate, the Maple Ridge house, the investment accounts, the land my own father left me on the edge of Knoxville that had been in this family for 40 years, now sat in an irrevocable trust established solely and permanently for Ella Fletcher, to be released in full on her 18th birthday, managed by an independent trustee, overseen entirely by Watson and Associates. Irrevocable, meaning done, meaning permanent, meaning sealed, meaning no attorney Harry or Renee hired, no matter how expensive, no matter how aggressive, was ever going to touch it. Additionally, a college fund in Ella's name, already established, already funded, already earning interest while we sat in this room. Renee stared at the document in front of her. Then she looked up at me and for the first time all morning, for the first time since she walked through my front door with her chin up and her armor on, the armor was completely gone. What was underneath it wasn't anger. It was fear. Genuine fear. The specific kind that arrives when a person finally underestimated has already outmaneuvered them at every single turn, while they weren't paying attention. Noah, she started. You chose who mattered to you, I said. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't lean forward. I just said it the way you say something that has already been decided. So did I. Nobody spoke. Good. Catherine laid out the resolution terms. For conditions clear, specific, legally binding, and entirely non-negotiable. 1. Ella begins weekly sessions with a licensed child therapist within 30 days. All costs covered by the trust. 2. Noah receives legally enforceable visitation rights, effective immediately. Every other weekend. 2 full weeks every summer. Major holidays to be discussed and agreed upon in writing. 3. Harry and Renee complete a minimum of 4 sessions of family counseling, together and individually. Documentation of attendance required. 4. The CPS report sits sealed in Catherine's files for 1 full calendar year. Any violation of any single condition, 1 missed counseling session, 1 incident, and it gets filed that same day. No phone call first. No second chance. Filed. Catherine closed her briefcase with a soft, deliberate click. These are not suggestions, she said pleasantly. They are terms. Renee looked at him. A whole silent conversation happened between them in about 4 seconds. Then she looked back at the table and gave one single tight nod. Like it cost her something she wasn't getting back. It did. Good. They signed at 10:34 a.m. Harry stood to leave and paused at the dining room doorway, his back to me, one hand resting on the frame. Is she? His voice caught slightly. Is Ella okay? I let the question sit in the air for a moment, long enough to be felt. She will be, I said. No thanks to you, but she will be. He nodded at the doorframe, didn't turn around, walked out. Renee followed without a word or a look. The front door clicked shut behind them. 6 months later, September, Knoxville, Tennessee. Ella calls me every Sunday at 6 p.m. Has not missed a single one. Last Sunday she talked for 47 minutes without pausing for air. About school, about her therapist Evelyn, who she describes as always smelling like a bakery, which is weird, but I actually really like it. About the pasta she made Harry for his birthday from Antonio's recipe. About how Michael let her pick the movie on Friday night, and she picked something he visibly hated and she felt a little bit bad, but also honestly not really. That last part she absolutely got from me. I am choosing to be proud of it. Harry shows up to every school event now. 3rd row. Every single time. He claps the loudest, and he doesn't make a production of it. No big announcements, no performative gestures. He just shows up and he stays the whole time. It is not redemption, not yet, but it is the road to it, and I know the difference between a man performing change and a man actually attempting it. Harry is attempting it. Renee is harder. Renee is civil and present, and trying in some weeks that genuinely has to be enough. The counselor told Harry, and Harry told me during one of our own conversations that have slowly, carefully resumed, that Renee had built her entire sense of family around Michael and that Ella had always represented something she didn't know how to absorb. I'm not a therapist. I'm not even going to pretend I fully understand it. They spent $20,000 to make her feel invisible. I spent more to make sure she never forgets she was always worth seeing. And that, right there, is the whole story. If you enjoyed this story, join our community by hitting that like button and subscribing for more real, raw, and family-centered stories. And as always, thank you for being a part of Dad's Raw Revenge. I will see you on the next one.